you never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
Welcome to the Common Folk Podcast.
The welcoming. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. He also
Been
had
working on it. You
yeah,
know?
that was a little bit of a radio voice. He fluctuated your voice.
I'm learning from you.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Carl, have you been in studio and I didn't know about this?
No, I spend a lot of my waking hours listening to Andy's recordings on the radio and all that kind of stuff. And
right. You're the one that's up at 4 a.m.
The morning
Not.
show. Yeah.
studying when I'm working out usually, actually.
Oh, man.
Oh,
really?
Wow.
Whoa.
He threw in 2 lies right there.
Oh, shit. Man.
She's not going to let you have it.
Nope, guess not. So let's just get right into it. We don't have any guests today. We've got a topic that we want to talk about. I think this particular topic is perfect for common folk because there's a lot of elements in here that that I believe, and I know a lot of people believe, and that you're not hearing on, the national news outlets. They're not addressing this, to me, obvious stuff, which is what this common folk thing's all about.
Yep. Yeah, some very glaring, just obvious points that maybe we want to go over.
Yeah. So that topic is this whole case surrounding the Alec Baldwin movie Rust and the shooting. Mm-hmm. The what do you call it? The alleged homicide.
Yeah.
It's alleged at this point, right?
Alleged. So they're already throwing verbiage in it like that where, if you just boil
we
it
know
down.
she passed away.
She was murdered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
She was shot to death by a .45 Colt handgun.
Right, yeah.
So, you can leave it at that.
Yeah. That's what happened.
Yeah, facts are facts.
It's just, it's alleged in that he has not been convicted yet.
Okay.
May or may not be, but, most of the writing's on the wall. But what we want to talk about is how all this went down and what we think about each one of these things along the way, and to, again, give that common sense perspective of, come on, man, this is what happened, this is what's going on. So to start kicking that off, let's first get into what supposedly happened. So they're making this movie. There's all these actors and all this kind of stuff. It seems like it's some Wild West movie.
And it was a movie that was going to be streamed on Hulu. Is that right?
I think Netflix.
Hulu?
I think it's a Netflix movie.
Netflix movie, okay. Yeah. And you're seeing a lot more actors do that. They're jumping ship and signing exclusive deals with whether it's Apple, Hulu, Netflix. Right. And we might be doing the same. We might be hopping on a platform. So
Yeah. That could happen. That could happen.
So this was outside.
Yes, so they're on. I assume they're on set somewhere.
Okay.
And I think it's important to mention, like Andy said, this is a Netflix, I think, exclusive show. So I'm sure they're funding it. It's their studio. Mm-hmm. And Alec Baldwin, from what I understand, I'd have to look up the specifics. It doesn't really matter, but is some kind of bigwig on set. So he's the producer or director or something.
Right, co-producer, assistant director, whatever. He's one of the higher-ups.
Yeah, so, and it's important to understand because those are the people that are in charge of everything when it all boils down. Well,
it's like, for me, if I take a sports perspective at it, when some of your football players are, caught drinking or, running amok downtown, that all comes back on the coach. It doesn't go to the general manager or it doesn't go to the team captain. It goes back on the coach.
Well, and an even better comparison with that scenario would be, the football coach and they're playing a game and the players execute some kind of play that has been practiced or whatever, and they didn't do it right. They didn't follow the guidelines they should have. Something went wrong.
Someone got hurt.
Yeah, someone gets hurt dramatically or they fumble the ball, the other team gets it, whatever. Yeah, you're going to say, oh, man, that player, they should have done better or whatever, but you're also going to go back to the boss. Like at the end of the day, the coach is going to have to sit down with the owner and answer for it.
And be accountable.
That's the one that's going to answer for it.
Yeah.
So that's the point that needs to be made is that this guy was a boss on set. And so many things that he's saying, trying to to point the blame on these other people,
Yeah.
like this armorer on the scene.
I thought it was hilarious in the one interview we were kind of reading over. He's like, I didn't even know what an armorer was until recently. And then he also says in the same freaking sentence, and that's the way I've always done it. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Already we got to back it up. So
Yeah.
you've always gone to an armorer, and that's a term you didn't even know existed till recently.
Right.
So, Alec, you already see where the contradictions is starting. You just opened up your argument here.
Yeah, there's a lot of contradictions. And he went on to say in that interview that, we always just called him a prop guy or girl.
Prop woman.
Okay,
he tried to correct himself.
Yeah, prop woman, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're prop people. So are these things props or are they real?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, so
apparently
we
they're real.
thought they were props.
yeah, so that's something that I want to touch on as well from a common folk perspective. I don't know how many people knew this. Maybe I'm just dumb. But
No.
I always thought that guns on sets of movies like this especially
Yeah.
were true, like,
replicas.
yeah, like fake pieces
That
that they,
could not hurt someone.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's even a sub market for those guns, and so you don't have to buy a real gun. You can just use it as self protection, hoping someone buys it. Or if you point at someone, they're oh man, so they make those replicas, and yeah, especially with the way sound effects are added and special effects are used. If you watch real closely now, you see fire getting spit out the end of a barrel of a gun. That's all added now.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised to hear that they were using real guns.
Yeah.
I get it. You want it to look real and everything else, but they actually make replicas. And one of my favorite movies, Snatch.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yep, we've seen that.
I mean, that's a big part of the movie where the guy gets called out and he goes, on the side of yours, it should say Desert Eagle. It says replica.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you just always use the replica on set for something like that? And here's how, dumb I am to this whole situation. Back in 1994, The Crow was a big movie. It was like and it's still a huge movie. Guys still dress up like that dude for Halloween. And Lee was his name. Was it Brennan?
I think so, yeah.
But he was shot to death on set, similar scenario.
Oh,
And
God.
that was in 94. So I thought, okay, since 94, I thought, okay, we learned our lesson.
Like almost 20 years later.
Yeah, let's not use real guns anymore because we're not going to do away with guns and glorifying war and all that type of stuff. We're still going to profit off of that. But we can at least take a small measure and just not use real guns on set. But I guess we don't do that.
And I thought at a minimum, like if they were real guns, that they were like disabled in one way or another.
Right, like the action would have been foiled up somehow,
Maybe
some
the
way.
hammer's ground down, or
Yeah, you just don't have the pin.
yeah, the firing pin's taken out,
There'd
or
be so many ways to
Yeah.
disarm that to make it, a non-firing
right.
weapon.
And I guess the thing would be in movies if they need to get that true shot as far as like the explosion and the smoke and all that kind of stuff, then it would need to be active in one way or another.
Then go to the range and do it and act like, you know what I mean? You can have, how many times do they not superimpose, but, like,
Add
this is
super
movies.
yeah.
Exactly.
I think you'd probably look better, if you did use special effects rather than trying to catch it for real.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can see like blanks getting used and things like that, but then what I see as like just a logical person thinking through this is, okay, if that's what we're going to do, then we're going to put in levels of checks and balances that are going to make this an extremely safe environment.
Yeah.
So there's stories that have come out. I haven't looked them up myself or confirmed everything, but they say something along the lines of like the evenings before, some of the cast and crew were out actually shooting these guns, like in the desert or wherever they
Oh,
were.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
out on set.
Yeah, just for
Like-
the fun of it, like
Okay.
target shooting or whatever. Like, obviously, that is not allowed. Period. I mean, you're on this movie set,
Yeah.
and everything has to stay in a certain order, and you as the director, the producer, the money man behind the scene,
that falls on you.
that doesn't get allowed. You there's no way it should be okay.
And isn't he an anti-gun person anyways?
Yeah, so this is another part of this conversation that we wanted to talk about. So
I better open up one of these for this.
yeah, this
There
is
we go.
gonna get deep here for a little bit.
Okay, because, yeah, I mean, I'm not fully versed on this story, but if I can remember that he's not so big on guns. So that's what made me think that.
No, and he's been at odds with the NRA because they're the biggest pro,
Right.
gun right group out there. So that's who you attack, right? He's always, whenever the NRA comes out with a statement, he's usually pretty quick, or his publicist has him say something, to the contrary or against it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's been a number of things. If you just quick Google search it, one of the first things that comes up is a spat that he had with one of the spokespeople from the NRA. I don't know exactly how to pronounce this lady's name, but it's Dana Lesh, something along those lines. This was like 2018. He doesn't like something she's talking about, and they're going back and forth on Twitter, and he says, this is exactly what he says on his tweet. I see that she wants to take back the truth, in parentheses. She doesn't care how many dead bodies she has to step over in that pursuit. The Second Amendment is not a moral credit card that buys you all the guns you want. That law needs to be rethought. So clearly what the guy's saying is that he thinks we need more gun laws. We need more restrictions on guns.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's clear what the guy thinks.
Yeah.
I don't think that's in debate. Here's where I have the problem. You cannot take that stance and talk all this trash about those rights and what other Americans are doing when you then make the decision to go ahead and use those same things to make your money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally profiting off of firearms, being cool holding a firearm, glorifying war and using firearms in a dishonest way or, a negative way,
Right. So he should be able to say that and then be able to be in movies that don't have guns in it. Basically is what you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
what I'm saying is walk the talk.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, he's smoking it from both ends.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
If this is what you truly believe, I'm not saying that you don't have the right to speak your mind and have your own beliefs. You
Yeah.
totally do. But if what you say and your actions are in complete contrast, then what you do is out the window to me. That's the common folk perspective. That's just basic.
Real basic stuff. Save yourself from being a hypocrite. It's
Right.
either one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And on a lot of things, and I think we do a pretty good job of arguing for the gray. There's always somewhere in the middle, But on this one, Mr. Alec Baldwin, you're the one that made this very black and white.
He did.
So you need to pick a side. And now he's trying to play it from both ends. And what's another frustrating element, and you've touched on this, Ben, is that he's trying to forego all the responsibility. Even though he wanted all the responsibility and all the tags, I'm co-producer, I'm co-director, and all this other stuff. And then he was even blaming it on the handlers and the prop. He had to even retract that statement. Prop people.
That's
Men-
just such
prop
a
men and women. God, it's just your wokeism knows no boundaries. And that's why
it's just so cowardly, to push blame on your people under you, or like take some ownership, some pride, step up, say you screwed up. Maybe you didn't know someone put a live bullet in it, or real, whatever you want to call it.
That's a fair point. Like someone had a job on that set
And they failed.
as the armorer to be providing those weapons and whatever other props that may be involved that people can trust. But when you're dealing with a lethal weapon, there has to be multiple levels of checks.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody who owns a gun and spends any time around guns knows, all of us know, the first thing you do when you get a gun handed to you is check to see if it's got a live round in it.
and never point it at somebody.
I know. I was just thinking
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Now,
even know if I could be in a movie doing that.
A movie is
that would scare me.
is one thing though. Like for the scenes, you kind of have to point it at somebody.
I get it, but that would still be scary to me.
Right.
Thinking someone handed me this.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it goes back to the first point you made. We're used to that. We know that like there could be a live, it could just, I don't know.
So,
it's just like, oh.
Now, some of the initial stories that came out of this, and it's hard to find now, but I do remember this. He was actually playing like a prank on this poor gal. Like it wasn't part of the, like what you're saying, Ben, like if it's part of the scene and it's during the movie and you got to point it at him, that's not when this happened.
They weren't even filming. It
was a prank on her. And that's why he actually ended up shooting the person that was standing behind her, Jose Souza.
It was like an
the director.
assistant director or something. Yeah.
Helena Hutchins was 42, and then he also wounded the director that was standing behind her. So that also proves that it wasn't during a live shot, that the initial reports that came out on E! Or whatever, that it was just a prank gone wrong. Well, then that really didn't fly with people, so we erased that story, get that out of the headlines.
Jeez.
And even this story that just came out a day ago on the New York Post, very liberal publication, they're even saying, look, we're not even saying you pulled the trigger, but the fact remains you were holding a firearm and it discharged and you shot somebody to death.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're just saying magically a bullet comes out without putting your finger on the trigger?
He's like, I don't know.
Well, I've got some stuff on that that does add up. But again, so back to the basics. You get that gun handed to you. You check to see if it's loaded or not. Period. That's just what you do.
Yep.
It takes 2 seconds and someone gets prevented from dying. Any person who is a gun person who would actually spend time to understand guns and understand the rules and understand how they work and respect them would do that.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say earlier.
That's problem number
know.
one. This guy does not. He does not respect guns. He doesn't think people should have them. He thinks the rights should be limited, and therefore he has not gone through any kind of training or any kind of formal experience or anything like that. As a perfect contrast, you can take somebody such as, and you could name a number of people, but somebody such as Keanu Reeves in the movies that he's been in, most notably John Wick. This dude, you can find video after video after video of this guy on the range just absolutely owning it.
Yeah.
He knows absolutely everything about it.
He's phenomenal in those three gun competitions. Yeah.
I promise you that guy, he gets a gun handed to him on set, he checks it.
Oh, yeah.
That's just what he does. He probably doesn't even think about it and checks it. Okay, so this is point number one. I'm
a big Keanu Reeves fan, by the way.
Yeah, he's great.
Whoa.
He's great.
Whoa.
So back to what you were talking about with did he pull the trigger or not, whatever, and was it were they messing around? So this is a 2020 interview that he did, and he specifically says we were doing a rehearsal. So this was not.
It's not the prank that initially came out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
so they changed the name to rehearsal.
But it was not like the actual movie recording. And he goes on to say that the photographer or the filmographer or whatever you call it, the lady that got shot, is directing him on what to do with the gun because she's looking through the camera and she's watching him. He's holding it up. Hold your gun lower. Go to the right. Okay, right there. Yeah, do that. Now show it a little lower. And he says she gets me to position the gun. So he's kind of putting that blame on her, like she's telling me where to point it.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know. She told me to.
And then he says she's guiding me through how she wants me to hold it for this angle. I'm holding it where she tells me to hold it, which ended up being aimed right below her armpit. What happens next is a mystery.
History.
Jeez.
So he says...
unbelievable.
So then they say, in the interview, they say to get the shot, he needed to cock the gun but not fire it. He says, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger. Okay. He says, I cock the gun. I go to her. Can you see that? Can you see that? And then I let go of the hammer and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. And the guy's interviewer, so you never pulled the trigger? No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. This is what he says. So with a wheel gun, revolver style, you can manually pull the hammer back,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't cock it into place and you have it pulled back far enough and let it fly, it's going to strike a bullet and make it fire.
Yes, it can definitely.
Yeah.
Discharge.
So that's what he's saying happened. Maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. Regardless, someone got shot.
Mm-hmm.
That action was taken. He took that action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all there is to it.
That's all there is to it.
I mean, off the movie set, do cops come to a house and someone could say the same thing and not get charged with murder? No,
Right.
absolutely not.
Or anywhere.
Oh, but that's right. We're a celebrity. We're out in Cali somewhere. I don't know. Why does he get thrown grace and I didn't do it? That's bull.
So they go on to talk about that he doesn't realize for about 45 minutes to an hour later that he had actually shot a real bullet
And
out
that
of
is
the gun.
such shit.
So the bullet goes through the lady, hits the individual behind her. They both go down.
Yeah.
He says something along the lines of, we were thinking maybe she had a heart attack or something.
So you're not going to check on her and see that there's
For 45 minutes, like no one has rushed to her help.
Well, I think some people did, but he personally didn't realize until
or
45
he didn't
minutes
care.
later. Who knows? Who knows what's going on in this guy's head? But so then they go on to speak with some of the other crew members, and first of all, Baldwin says accidental discharges of blanks or dummy rounds on film and television sets are common. Crew members have since said with this particular movie that there had already been at least one accidental discharge on this set, and it was just days before this incident. So again,
it's already happened once
prior to that
on Rust
on the exact set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you got lucky once. So then how does the intensity not get raised on the safety of the whole thing?
Instead, they go out shooting the night before and having fun and mixing the guns and the lives and the the dummy rounds. So,
I mean, does he ever say that he thought there was a dummy round in there? I mean, that's what he's thinking,
or a
correct?
So
blank,
he
whatever?
says that this other individual who did get charges, I believe, Halls was the guy's last name, if I can remember that correctly. But anyway, he says the guy, or no, that might not have been Halls. That might have been the. Either way, it doesn't matter. There was another guy on the scene who actually handed him the gun
and said it was fine.
And the guy told him that it was a cold gun, meaning no live rounds. Apparently, that's the way that they understood it.
Okay.
Is that what that means? Andy?
That other guy went on to say that it was something that he never checked himself. It was something that he was told. So the gun had been handed between like three people
and
at
no
least.
one checked him.
And that was Baldwin in his interview said it was a cold gun.
Yeah.
And I think he's mixing up terminology or just making terminology up himself to sound like he does have street cred, because if a gun is hot, doesn't that mean it's stolen? That doesn't mean it has a live round in it.
Right. Yeah.
You actor.
Yeah. And if you're a gun person and you listen to these interviews, if you spend a good amount of time around them, and again, you understand them, you respect them, you know the terminology.
Yeah.
This guy clearly does not know any of the terminology.
No.
As he talks through how a gun works and, looking at his clip and so on and so forth, like that's a movie phrase. Like that's not even a real thing.
Yep. And he probably said, I can't believe there was ballistic tips in it. There wasn't.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So last thing I have here, they went on to say that they talked to a couple of crew members, and this is directly from this 2020 interview. It says some crew members have described the fatal accident as a symptom of a production in disarray, leveling allegations in the press and in civil litigation of unsafe work conditions, long hours, insufficient housing accommodations, and underqualified hires. Just hours before the shooting, several crew members walked off the set in protest.
Oh.
So you clearly have a mess.
Oh, yeah, a hot mess going on.
And somebody is responsible for this.
Yeah. So.
Goes back to the boss.
Yeah.
Alec himself.
And in this case, the boss is the one that actually, allegedly pulled the trigger. Well, pulled the hammer back. I mean, can we say? I mean, he was holding the gun and it went off.
Yeah.
And just boil it back down to that. I'm just kind of going through that New York Post article that just came out a couple days ago. And here's a quote from old Alec that really got the other side mad, like his people mad at him. And here it is, word for word. What you have, this is Alec Baldwin addressing the media, what you have is a certain group of litigants on whatever side who their attitude is, well, the people who likely seem negligent have enough money, and the people who have money are not negligent. But we're not going to let that stop us from doing what we need to do in terms of litigation. Why sue people if you're not going to get the money? That's what they're doing. And that really pissed off this deceased lady's husband.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Where are they in all this?
And even the New York Post, this writer says, what a disgustingly insensitive, arrogant, dismissive, soulless way to behave towards a man whose wife is dead because of Baldwin's actions.
Yeah.
You couldn't say it better than that.
Yeah.
Right there. Like, he is so unaware that he took someone's life.
He's still pushing blame.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's fault.
And now it's the damn lawyer's fault.
Yeah.
And now it's so removed from him just actually doing this. Like,
and saying, I'm sorry.
No, you're definitely not going to say he's sorry.
You know?
Yeah.
They, and like you said, it was an accident. I mean,
we all agree on that.
Yes.
But that doesn't take away your legal responsibility, of killing somebody. And most accidents happen because of someone being negligent in one form or another.
Right. All those things that you were talking about is kind of adding up to this being a possibility.
Yeah. So, yes, it was an accident, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been prevented, and that doesn't mean that the person who could have prevented it shouldn't be responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah.
I don't really understand what the debate's about.
I don't either, other than it's really putting another limelight on that there's two categories or classes of people, the haves and the have-nots. And if we're dealing with the have-not right now, I mean, you'd own it. You would have no other option here.
Yeah.
And you'd also have a public figure like Alec Baldwin grandstanding, gaslighting. Is that a term that you use now?
Right.
Saying, see what happens when we let those people have guns?
Yep.
They just shoot each other and kill each other.
God.
Even injure the people behind the people they kill.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was you, Alec. You shot somebody.
Yeah. So there is a verdict or?
Well, didn't something get dropped?
Yeah, there's a few things going on, and as
so it's not closed.
As we are recording this today, just yesterday, some new information came out that I want to get into. That's going to take us just a few minutes because it's very telling as well, in one way or another, if you really look into it. So let's get into that. But first, before we do that, let's take a quick break. The Common Folk Podcast is brought to you by one of the newest and coolest brands in the outdoors, Stock and Rod. Stock and Rod brings to the outdoors person quality apparel items that you can be proud to sport. The gear is top-notch and the designs are second to none. Stock and Rod also represents some of the biggest names in the outdoor social media and YouTube space by handling the design, production, and sale of their own branded merch. Check them out at www.stockandrod.com. Stock and Rod. Wild game on. All right, we're back. So let's get into the charges here and what has happened the last couple of days. So I'm just going to read something real quick here off of a news site. I think this is from NBC. It says an involuntary manslaughter charge has been downgraded, a significant win for Baldwin, who is accused in the fatal shooting on the New Mexico set of Rust. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter, accusing him of having skipped required firearms training and having created a climate of recklessness on the set. So I think we've pretty well painted that picture.
Mm-hmm.
What they call a firearm enhancement to the charge could have made the crime punishable by a mandatory sentence of 5 years in prison. So basically, he was charged with involuntary manslaughter. Involuntary manslaughter can be achieved by any number of things.
Right. You run somebody over in a car and you didn't see him there.
Exactly. So they had an enhancement on this charge that has specifically to do with a firearm, because that's what he used. And that was going to get him a minimum of 5 years in prison. Let's see. The district attorney dropped the enhancement this past week. So it now means that he's going to face a max of 18 months. So he was 5 months in or 5 years in for sure.
Yep.
And now he's a max of 18, which probably means he's not going to get any, maybe 6, but if he's convicted. So let's see. They go on to say they removed the firearm enhancement. The prosecution's priority is securing justice, not securing billable hours for big city attorneys. So they're trying to back down, saying, like, we're not going to just put a bunch of time into this so they can make more money. Let's get into that real quick. So first of all, this is the way that I understand that. They're in New Mexico, so I assume this is a New Mexico rule or law. I don't know if it's a federal thing or what, but from what I understand, the firearm enhancement required the discharging of a firearm, which is what he did.
Mm-hmm.
The technicality is that supposedly, and I haven't looked any of this up myself, but supposedly this enhancement was put into law or rule after he actually committed the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So he committed a crime on X date. This enhancement was upgraded with this particular language on a date after that.
So was that coincidence or?
Well, I think the bill was written up a long time before that, and it didn't actually get passed or put into law until after it. So I think this just happened like right in between, like in the middle of the process. And when they finally got to filing, it's like, oh, well, this falls under that new enhancement law. And once again, and I haven't looked enough into it, but it does seem like, okay, if you're going to own a gun, this is going to be another hoop and everything else that you're going to have to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this just feels like something the left would really push for, just to make it even more difficult to own and operate, protect yourself with a firearm.
Yeah. And from what I understand, this enhancement existed prior to this incident, but it existed in a different form. And what the form was in was of just having a gun in your hand and essentially like threatening somebody with it, like waving it around or whatever. That's how the enhancement existed. So they're saying, no, he was not intentionally threatening somebody with a gun, and the enhancement in its form at that time, here's how it exists, so he's not responsible for that.
But didn't you read that he was pointing it at her?
Yeah, but it was
more of an intent thing. I'm thinking you're so in that case,
like premeditated.
Yeah, like that was a movie. Like they're doing their thing. They're just they're setting up a scene, whatever. It wasn't an actual criminal walking into a gas station, waving a gun around, saying, "Hey, I'm going to kill you."
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah, using it in that type of fashion.
Yeah, and in one way or another, what surprises me is that any gun rule, any gun law that's going to come out that's going to make people have to spend more time in jail or have more severe penalties or whatever. Mm-hmm. Mr. Baldwin's already made it clear that he's going to support that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right.
So, so now when one of those things plays against him, he's like, oh, well, no, hang on a second. No, I can get out of that one.
Yeah, that hasn't been passed yet, has it?
Right.
That hasn't hit the floor yet. Yeah.
If the guy, here's where I'm at with this. If the guy truly believes what he says, then what he should do is he should do the time, and he should launch some campaign from jail of awareness of what all happened, why this shouldn't have happened, how this could stop from happening again, and use his platform at that point to really drive something that he claims he's passionate about.
Like that you'll do on movie sets and have all these checkpoints and stuff.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking
any
about?
of that kind of stuff, or even any rules, period, behind guns and people getting killed. He would have a platform at that point from jail. Like he could
True.
He could do something
so good
that no one has ever done.
Yeah. He won't do
from
that.
jail.
Please.
But here's my point, and this is when you start figuring out what people's real priorities are, what their real motivations are. No, he's not going to do that. He doesn't want to go to jail for 5 years. He's afraid of that. He wants his 6 months, if that, his house arrest,
pay the money,
collect his paycheck, and move on, and then probably still talk shit on Twitter about guns
and continue to profit off the use of guns in his movies and all of his acting jobs.
Anything for some money.
Yeah, and then his latest round of placing blame on others, it's because he makes so much money. That's why people are after him. No, they're after you because you shot somebody.
Yeah,
that's why they're after you.
And they're also after you for what I think we have made clear, in that you've talked all this trash about this industry and about guns and Second Amendment rights and so on and so forth. And now you're one of the people that did something that all of these other people that you talk trash about supposedly had done, and you're not going to own up to it.
Yep.
You're going to blame it on everyone else.
Yep.
It's someone else's fault for...
He blamed the person that he shot. It was her fault.
Yeah, for setting it up, for having him point it that way.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
I mean, it really is crazy when you think about it.
Nah, he
It's just not the same if it was in real life and not on a movie set. It just seems so unfair.
It is. It's a they play with a different deck of cards.
Yeah,
that's
they do.
For sure, on a few different levels there. And Ben, I love your idea there where, I mean, he could do so much good and use that platform to promote gun safety, checkpoints, just setting up some type of a course that, hey, every time you come in contact with a firearm, handgun, rifle, whatever, you do these 4 things before, your next step.
Yeah, and saying, I didn't, maybe I should have.
Yep. Check the chamber,
Use his platform and his situation for what would be good in his eyes, and own up and use that example like no one else would be able to.
He caught so much negative publicity with that interview he did on ABC, and after that he's actually doubled down, still going the other way. I mean, this quote I just read from him, now he's blaming the lawyers too. It's just his self-awareness is very, very poor.
He's such a coward.
There you go. He's a hypocrite.
Yes.
100%. Mm-hmm. The last thing that I have here is, it looks like it's a statement from his attorney. The guy says he calls the charges a terrible miscarriage of justice.
Really?
He has previously said the defense would fight the accusations and win. And here's a quote. Mr. Baldwin had no reason to believe there was a live bullet in the gun or anywhere on the movie set. He relied on the professionals with whom he worked. And again, just
anywhere on the movie set, even the night before when you guys were practice shooting.
And he hired those professionals, or he was part of it. I mean, that's one of his titles. So.
Yeah, just passing it off.
Yeah,
it's today is Tuesday when we're recording. We'll probably have this out Wednesday or Thursday-ish.
Yep.
It says that the next court date is scheduled for Friday. And
so
I believe
that's
Friday. This week. So when folks are listening to this, they'll kind of be up to speed on what's going on. And it looks like this was published on the 20th, so it'll be this Friday. And then hopefully we'll be able to hear maybe what happens at that next court date.
Yeah, maybe do run it back. And the article that I've been referencing was actually published this morning. So it's a pretty new one.
Super new.
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
So, I mean, once again, like, we are pro-gun. Mm-hmm. I think everybody should have a gun. I think everybody should go through, like, a hunter safety type of course. Mm-hmm. Maybe not a hunter safety, but something, I mean, even if you don't own a gun and you just come across one. Or you get asked to hold one on a movie set because you're an actor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But, I mean, it would make a lot of sense if somewhere along the line you had some type of training. And it would also help with this culture of people that are just deathly afraid of guns.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be afraid of a gun if it's just sitting there on a table.
Right.
That gun is not going to do anything to you. It will if Alec Baldwin's holding it.
Yeah,
but that's also part of the learning we're trying to get people to understand.
Yeah. If an Alec Baldwin-esque character has a weapon, it's like we said in the beginning here. You walk in, say you walk in this room and there's a gun sitting on the middle of this table. What you're going to do, if you're by yourself, is first of all, you're going to be like, hey, whose gun is this or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you need to move that thing, you're going to pick it up. You're going to open the action. You're going to see if it has any live rounds in it. You're going to see if it has a safety, put it on safety, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know the condition that gun's in. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But one that doesn't or isn't as familiar, I mean, obviously I'm not compared to you guys, I could see how that could scare somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Like just a gun sitting there. Mm-hmm. If you don't know how to open it, that could be scary.
But I'm
just saying, from the outside.
You're smart enough, though. You've been around it enough.
I have, but those that haven't.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that maybe you would even know how to clear that gun, but you would figure out how to handle that.
Yes.
It wouldn't be like oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, we just ignore this thing? We don't talk about it? We're not sure? Like, what's happening? You
know? No, you're right.
A lot of people, and this kind of kills me, they talk about handguns like the scenario we're talking about. You go into a room and the handgun's sitting there on a table. They view it like a pit bull.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, pit bulls are whatever you want to call it. You know, it's kind of, once again, how is that dog raised? Okay.
Right, yeah.
But even there, a gun is not just going to decide to like turn its head over and start biting at you or start barking at you. That you can't have that type of a mindset, but a lot of people do, and it's not all their fault. I'm not blaming. They're led to believe that through movies like Alec Baldwin's in. You better be afraid of guns. I got a gun. I can shoot you. You know, like it's this false narrative of glorifying guns and wars. It's not all a good thing, but it's a big moneymaker in Hollywood. So they're going to continue to do that.
And the actors who don't like the gun scene are still very willing to make money off of it.
Yes, they are. Part of the double standard we're kind of talking about here.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's an interesting topic. It's kind of a crazy thing that what's going on, and you know, when you look at all the pieces of it.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's going to set a little bit of a precedence going forward, I think.
Yeah, maybe when we get one of our guests back on, like Dean or somebody, get his perspective. I like hearing from those type of guys.
Yeah.
You know, because everyone has a different look on it, different spin on it, and hey, we're just common folk, so we want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, what do we know?
Yeah.
Not much.
I mean, never shot anybody, but okay.
Right. Yeah.
I got that going.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. All right, cool. Well, I think that's all I got on this one. We'll see, like I said, this week, see what happens, and we'll pay close attention. But until next time, we appreciate it.
All right, peace.
Later.
Later.